holding on Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis. And did we actually turn? We did turn the page. Yeah, we turned to Nun Hey Amud Aleph. We're actually holding on page 55A. And we're going to be going over, we really did a lot yesterday. So now maybe we'll go over it a little slower and go through it a little more thorough. So the Gemara that we learned, we were dealing a lot with numbers. The numbers of how many tekiah and trua blasts from a trumpet were blasted on different holidays, and what was the maximum amount that you would have was really a big topic. In addition to the fact, why did the Mishnah pick one case over other cases? And additionally, the statement of Rav Acha Bar Chanina, which was a statement that was something that was questionable if it really was his statement was really true and correct. He brought a brisa that when you have different holidays at the same time together, do you have a special blowing of the trumpets for each of those holiday sacrifices, each of those musaf sacrifices, or do you just do it once? Is it an obligation for the day, or is it an obligation? Is it you sort of like your it really is like today. Today's Rosh Chodesh. Do we say an extra ashrei and a volatzion for Rosh Chodesh because it's also Rosh Chodesh? It's a Rosh Chodesh. No, we do one Psukei de Zimra. We do one Berachas Kriya Shema in the prayers, but we do two Shmona Esreis, one for the regular day and one for the Musaf. And then when it comes to Ashrei of Olatzion, one. Aleinu, one. So when it comes to Shmona Esrei, we did two. So with Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, Musaf of Rosh Hashanah, Musaf of Shabbos, if they all fall on the same day, would you do blowing the trumpets for each one? Or is it you do a Musaf blowing? So it's for Musaf, you have to do a Musaf blowing. Yeah, one of the areas where this becomes practical, and I'm not sure if it's connected 100%, but it's similar. Maybe it is connected, would be when you have a mitzvah to eat a meal, so that additional this additional prayer that's added, the additional paragraph in the benching becomes crucial and vital to fulfill your benching. For example, on Shabbos, if you miss Ritzeh, if you miss adding in the paragraph for Shabbos, you have to repeat the benching. Why would you have to repeat the benching? Because benching is an obligation, and because it's an obligation to eat a meal, so therefore your benching needs to include Ritzeh. And if you miss Ritzeh, if you miss that additional paragraph, you need to go over the entire benching. Now, what happens if Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos? If Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos, then if you miss the Ritzeh of Shabbos, you skipped it out, you got to repeat the benching. But does Rosh Chodesh really need a meal? Not necessarily. Rosh Chodesh doesn't really need a meal. Shabbos needs a meal. So if it was Rosh Chodesh and you missed Ya'aleh V'Yava, you missed the additional Rosh Chodesh add-on, you don't have to repeat the benching. But if it's Shabbos, and you skip the Ritzei, you do have to repeat Shemona Esrei. What happens if it's Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh? If it's Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, and you miss Ritzei, does that now, that meal is an obligation because of Shabbos, you have to eat the meal. So does Ritzei take on the same obligation like Shabbos? Does it sort of kick in? I'll give you another example. There's a shaila that was asked for Moshe Feinstein, where there were some people that were in prison and they were getting freed. It was on a Shabbos. That was Rosh Chodesh. And they didn't know the add-on by heart of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Shemona Esrei. It's called Ata Yotzarta. It's a special add-on. And so what they did was they just said the Shabbos Shemona Esrei of Musaf, Ata Tikanta. They added on the regular Shabbos Shemona Esrei. And then they got freed. And they asked Reb Moshe, what should we do? Because it's Rosh Chodesh. Should we say the Musaf of should we say the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh now? Ata Yitzarta. So Reb Moshe Paskin, very interesting. He said, no, you already did the Shabbos Musaf add-on. What you missed out is the weekday Musaf for Rosh Chodesh. So just do a weekday Musaf. Because you already did the add-on. You already mentioned the add-on of Shabbos. And another big Rav in Eretz Yisrael argued. Of course, it was after the fact, so he wasn't there. It's after the fact, but he brings in his he argued on Rav Moshe and claims that they should have said Ata Yatzarta. What's the argument about? It's a similar idea, like the Shemona Esrei of Musaf of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh it's supposed to be a hybrid of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. It's supposed to be a hybrid of those two Shemona Esreis. It's not two separate entities. It's a hybrid. It becomes its one Shemona Esrei. Rav Moshe said no. Each one deserves its own. You have to have a Rosh Chodesh. You have to have a Shabbos. You did a Shabbos. Now you do the Rosh Chodesh. Of course, when you're saying one Shemona Esrei, fine, you make a hybrid. But if you missed it out, it's two separate entities. And, it's almost like in our Gemara, like you have blowings for Rosh Hashanah. You have blowings for Rosh Chodesh. You have blowings, trumpet blowings for Shabbos. But sometimes you have this idea where you have a combination of holidays where the question would be, does it become like a hybrid where you just do one and it suffices? Or does each thing carry with it carries its own obligations? So anyway, so here we have Rav Acha Bar Chanina's law, and the Gemara deals with it. And the Gemara really is going to deal with it again. It's not really done. The Gemara dealt with it because there seemed to be a number of questions on it. It was quite innovative of Rav Acha. Well, I mean, it's not his own. He brought a brisa. Rav Acha Bar Chanina from Deroima, from the south of Eretz Yisrael. He brought this brisa, Isa Masnisa Biyade, and his message was Yiska'u, that it didn't have to say Yiska'u, they blow, and it already says. So he says it means Hakol Lafi Hamusafin Toikin. You blow for each of the musafs. That Yiska'u is teaching you that there has to be blowings. Each one deserves its own blowings. It's not enough just to say, well, we're going to blow trumpets during Musaf. No, each Musaf has its own blowings. And the Gemara brought a number of questions to that, and the conclusion that so far was that they didn't prove him wrong. We answered all the questions. He had asked a question from our Mishnah. and the Mishnah seems to give one case, and according to Rav Acha Bar Chanina, you could have given, why didn't you give a different case? And they could have said Shabbos, Shabbos Soicha Chag. You would have that case. In that case, you would even have more. If Rav Acha Bar Chanina is correct, then you would have a case of even more than 48, because Shabbos on Sukkot, Shabbos Shabbosoicha Chag, you actually have, instead of the 48, you really have for Shabbos there's an extra musaf, so you got an extra 9. So even though the case the Mishnah gave was Erev Shabbos Shabbosoicha Chag, where you have an extra 6, but Shabbos Shabbosoicha Chag you'll have an extra 9. You'll lose those 6, but you have 9. So it comes out 51 instead of 48 altogether. So the Gemara said, then it seemed to be a little unclear. The first statement of the Gemara was Reb Zera's statement that you don't blow the first 3 on Shabbos because those are not doicha Shabbos. They don't override Shabbos. Rava seems to argue with Reb Zera, and Rava says that the Mishnah says B'chol Yoim. Sounds like every day, even Shabbos, you blow those 3. So there seems to be a machloikas, Reb Zera and Rava, if you blow those 3, called the 3 for psichas sha'arim. Then we have that Rava had asked a question about even if you're correct that you don't blow it, but still, the fact is that this would be an example of 48, just like the Mishnahs. And if Rav Acha Bar Chanina was correct, he should have given this example better than the Mishnah's example. And the answer that he gives is, guess what? When it falls on Shabbos, you don't blow Miloi Mayim, any of the 12 water libation blowings. You don't the water drawing blowings, I should say. You don't you don't blow them when it falls on Shabbos. So those don't override Shabbos, and well, they don't override Shabbos. That's not the actual. I should say it a little more clear. It's not really because they don't override Shabbos. It's more you don't even do the drawing on Shabbos. You do the drawing Erev Shabbos. That's really more correct to say. You do the drawing before Shabbos. Is not done on Shabbos. So it comes out that on Shabbos you don't have 12. You're missing 12 of those drawings. It ends up that instead of 48, you got 36. You're missing those 12. Batsri Tuva, the Gemara says. So that seems to be the answer to that. But then the Gemara says that if Rav Acha is correct, then why doesn't the Mishnah say a case of Rosh Chodesh that falls? I'm sorry, Rosh Hashanah that falls on Shabbos, where it's Rosh Hashanah is also Rosh Chodesh. So you have the 3 musafs of Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah, Shabbos is 27 right there, 27 plus the so it's Rosh Hashanah, Shachol b'Shabbos, Shachol that falls on Shabbos. So you got 27 there, and plus 21, you got 48 right there. And why doesn't the Mishnah say that case? And then it would teach us this law about different musafs get extra blowings. And the Gemara's answer to that was, well, the Mishnah could have said this, could have said that. It picked this case because it teaches us something about the blowings on Sukkot. And if it would have said the other case, it would have taught us something else. But wanted to say this, it wanted to teach us this law of Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov, that you have blowings on Sukkot that are connected to the when you put the willows on top of by the altar. So it taught us this law of Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov. It gave this example. So the Gemara asks, but still, it could have done both. Why did it leave that out? So the Gemara's answer to that is Tana Vashir, that we have different ways to go do that. The Tana left doesn't say every case, but then the Gemara says, but then he has to leave some other case out. What was the other case? So the Gemara's example, the Gemara's so that's the Rosh Hashanah case. What's the other case where it's Tana Vashir? The other case is Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach is also you got the same numbers, 27 and 21, because the Hallels of each group were each group did 3 Hallels, and each Hallel is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Each group did 9 blows. And if you have 3 groups, which is the Mishnah tells us on the Pesach, they would have different groups go through and bring their Paschal offerings. Each group did 9 Hallels. You have 27 blows. 9 blows, 3 Hallels, which equals 9 blows of the trumpet. So then you have 27 blows plus the regular 21. 27 plus 21 is 48. You got 48. So why doesn't it give that? So that would be another case that it left out. It left out the Erev Pesach that falls on Shabbos. The Gemara says, yeah, but that doesn't fit with Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara says, well, we're not going according to Rabbi Yehuda because our Gemara already said that Rabbi Yehuda holds that you don't count Tekiah, Trua, Tekiah as 3. You count that as 1, and that's not like our Mishnah. Our Mishnah counts it as 3. So the Gemara says, yeah, we don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda in that, but maybe our Mishnah holds like Rabbi Yehuda in this. In other words, it follows a rabbi that follows Rabbi Yehuda. Part of Rabbi Yehuda's view here doesn't follow necessarily Rabbi Yehuda's view in other areas. So the question is, Erev Pesach, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you don't have 27 plus 21. Instead you have 21 plus 21. And so it's not the same number. So that's so maybe because of Rabbi Yehuda, it's not called that it was ton of a shear, because Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, this was not another example of 48. It's really an example of 6 less. Instead of 48, it comes to 42. So 21 plus 21 is 42. So the Gemara says, yeah, but there is a case where it's 48, and that is if it falls out, you have another 6. You have to add 6. How do you have 6? Erev Shabbos. So Erev Pesach falls on Erev Shabbos. Then you have Erev Pesach falls on Erev Shabbos. So you have 6 for blowing for the Shabbos. Then you're blowing of the trumpets. Then you have the 21 according to Rabbi Yehuda, and then you have the regular 21 of a regular day. So you got 21 blows for Hallel according to Rabbi Yehuda. The reason why Rabbi Yehuda says there's not 27 blows by Hallel, only 21, is because he holds that there's 3 groups. The first group blows 9 blasts because it says Hallel 3 times, and each time is 3. So it's the first group gets 9 blasts. The second group does also the same thing, 9 blasts, because it says Hallel 3 times until they finish that whole group bringing all the Paschal offerings. They're saying Hallel 3 times. So they get, and each Hallel is 3 blasts. So they get 9 blasts. So you got the first group with 9 blasts, second group 9 blasts. That's 18. And the third group, according to Rabbi Yehuda, only does 3 blasts because they only say Hallel once. And even that Hallel is not a complete, they don't finish it. They say part of Hallel. They by the time they get to the next paragraph, they're already done finishing bringing the sacrifice. So they blow 3 times, but not 9. No. So he misses. So you miss that extra 6 times because they're only saying Hallel once, partially once, partial Hallel, and so they get the 3 for the first Hallel, but they don't get the other 2 Hallels, which is 6 blasts. So they're missing out in 6. So, but then the Gemara says, but you could have the 6 with the Erev Pesach, Erev Shabbos that falls on Erev Pesach. So you're going to altogether have 21 plus 21 plus 6 for Erev Pesach comes to 48. So then that would be an example of Tana V'Shir that the Gemara gave, that the Gemara would the Mishnah mentioned one case, but it did leave out 2 cases: the Rosh Hashanah that falls on Shabbos, or the Erev Pesach that falls that either regular Erev Pesach or an Erev Pesach that falls on Erev Shabbos, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so that was that part. Then the Gemara talked about Ein Moisifin al Arboim V'Shmeina, that you never have more than 48. The Gemara there, and this is the new Gemara really yesterday about that we never have more than 48. The Gemara says, what do you mean? You could have, imagine Erev Pesach that falls on Shabbos. Erev Pesach that falls on Shabbos, you could have as much as 57. Why? Because we said Erev Pesach, the regular Erev Pesach, has 27 plus 21 is 48. Then if it's Shabbos, add on Shabbos, you get another 9. 48 plus 9 is 57 because there's 9 blasts during the Musaf of Shabbos. So you got an Erev Pesach that falls on a Shabbos, you're all set. 57. And then according to Rabbi Yehuda, you do lose 6. you miss out in 6 because he holds the Hallels didn't give you 27 blasts. You only got 21 blasts out of Hallels. So he's losing 6. So 57 minus 6 is 51. Still more than 48. So the Gemara asks, you're telling me you never have more than 48? The Mishnah seems to say that the maximum was 48. We got some better numbers over here. We got 51 and we got 57. What does the Mishnah mean? You can't have more. So the Gemara's answer is, yeah, you don't have it every year. That's only depends on how it falls. It could fall out that way. Erev Pesach falls on a Shabbos. Fine. They're very nice. You're going to be able to get your 57 blasts, but that's not a regular happening. That's something that once in a while, and as I mentioned, sometimes you go 20 years past before without a Shabbos that falls on Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach that falls on Shabbos. And then the Gemara said that answer is not such a great answer because Erev Shabbos, maybe we should do this inside. I'm going to just read this inside over here. So, Ein my Sivan al Arboim Ushmaina. We did a little fast yesterday. Let's just do it again. It's the new piece of Gemara on page 54b. It's 9 lines from the top of the page. Let's just start there and we'll do it inside. Vein my Sivan al Arboim Ushmaina. We don't do more. You never have more, the Mishnah said, than 48. So 54b. Again, the 9th line here, the Gemara says, "V'lo, you don't never have more." V'ika erev haPesach shcholiyos b'Shabbos. Isn't there? Can't you have an erev Pesach that falls on Shabbos? That you have the regular 21 of a regular day, and erev Pesach gives you, according to Rabbi Yehuda, 21 extra blasts for the Hallels. You have, the 9 plus 9 plus 3. You have 9 blasts for the first group, 9 blasts for the second group, 3 for the third group. That's 21 again. So you got 21 a regular day, 21 for the Hallels, and it's Shabbos. So you got 21 plus 21 plus 9. That comes to 51. The Ila Reb Yehuda, according to Reb Yehuda, Chamshin v'choda. That's 51. You got 21 plus 21 plus 9. That's 51. And the Ila Rabbanan, according to the rabbis, how much do you have? Chamshin v'sheva. You have 57 because according to the rabbis, you got 21 for a regular day, 27 for the 9 blasts of each of the groups during Hallel. Each group that's 9 is times 3 is 27. So you got 27 plus 21 plus the Shabbos, the 9 for Shabbos. That's 48 plus 9 is 57. So you got Chamshin v'sheva, you have 57. So the Gemara, so why does the Mishnah only say it says the maximum is 48 when we have either 51 or 57? Kikotani, the Gemara answers, Kikotani midi disam chol shana. When did we learn that the maximum is 48? Only when it had that's for on something that happens every year. Erev Pesach shechol liyas b'Shabbos, the lesson chol shana b'shana. When Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos, you don't have that every year. It happens randomly, once in a while, once in a blue moon. Like Katani, it doesn't say, so it doesn't mention that number, and it doesn't mention that case in the Mishnah because the Mishnah is talking about on a regular basis, every year you have, the maximum is 48. There are unique situations where there actually could be more. But it could be more for unique situations. And if those unique situations happen, then it is more. But on a regular, for a regular rule, it's 48 is the maximum yearly amount, maximum that happens in a regular year. So the Gemara asks, that doesn't really fit with the Mishnah. Atu erev Shabbos shebesoicha chag mi'isa b'chol shana. Do you blow 48 every year on Erev Shabbos that's on Sukkot, on the holiday of Sukkot? Do you every year blow 48 blasts when Erev Shabbos for the Friday of Sukkot? In other words, every day of the week. Sukkot is 7 days. So every day of the week, there is such a day on Sukkot because Sukkot is 7 days. So, but the Friday of Sukkot Is there every year mi isa b'chol shana? Do you have 48 blasts every year? Zimnin delay meshkachasle. There are times that you're not going to have the 48 blasts on a on the Friday of Sukkot. How is that so? How could that be? If it's the first day. If it's the first day of Sukkot, the Yom Tov Rishon falls on Friday, then you don't do a lot of those blasts, all the blasts that have to do with the Niso Chamayim, the blasts that have to do with the water drawing ceremony. You don't blow them. The 12 blasts, you're missing those 12 on the first day. Again, it falls on a Friday, and you would have 12 less instead of 48. You would have 36. So again, you'd have the 21 for the regular day, plus you would have 9 for the Musaf of Sukkot, and you would have 6 for Erev Shabbos. So 21 plus 9 is 30, and 6 would be 36. So you have 36 instead of 48 because you're missing the extra blowings that have to do with the Niso Chamayim, with the water, and that wouldn't be done on the first day of Sukkot. So you're trying to tell me that the Mishnah didn't mention the case of the 51 or the 57 because it doesn't happen every year. Well, guess what? Your case also doesn't happen every year, Mishnah. The Mishnah's case is a case of Friday on Sukkot. Friday on Sukkot doesn't happen every year. And so yesterday I mentioned that the wording of the Mishnah sort of you could say it says Erev Shabbos Shebasoich HaChag, the Erev Shabbos that's in the middle of the Chag, but not on the first day. But that's not the real translation of it. The real translation is Erev Shabbos Shebasoich HaChag, Erev Shabbos, a Friday that falls on Sukkot. But basically what comes out is that the Mishnah's case of 48 is not necessarily going to happen every year. That means there are years that you don't have the 48. It should happen on the Friday of Sukkot, because there's always a Friday of Sukkot, but should happen then, but not really, because if that Friday is on the first day, then you don't have the 48. And then the other days of Sukkot, you're not going to have it either, because you don't have the Erev Shabbos 6 blasts. You're missing those blasts for the Erev Shabbos. Even on Shabbos, which even Shabbos on Sukkot will also you also miss out, as we mentioned earlier. You miss out the 12. So basically, the question is back to square one. Why are we not mentioning the case of Erev Pesach Shechol b'Shabbos? So the Gemara says, no, our answer is actually a good answer. The answer that we gave actually is a good answer. Your rebuttal to our answer is not such a good rebuttal. You wanted to say the Mishnah's case doesn't happen every year. Guess what? It does happen every year, because the Mishnah's case is that the Friday of Sukkot, you always have 48. Guess what you do? Because Friday never falls on the first day of Sukkot. And so therefore, the Mishnah's case is a case that happens every year. Every year that the Friday of Sukkot, there's 48. Ki mikla Yom Tov Rishon Berev Shabbos midchei dochinon lei. Whenever Yom Tov, the first day of Yom Tov of Sukkot, falls on a Friday, we push it off. The rabbis have a way of pushing off and making the month of Elul into a month of 30 days, and it gives them the ability to push off the whole holiday of in other words, if you push off a day a month before, it messes up the next month as well. Everything gets pushed off a day, and so now Sukkot is pushed off a day. So if they see that Sukkot is going to fall on a Friday, they push it off a day. Why? Why do they do that? My time kivan deikla Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag liyos berev Shabbos, because if Sukkot is going to fall on a Sunday, that means that Yom Kippur Meimas Havi, when would Yom Kippur be? B'chad b'Shabbos, it would end up being on a Sunday, and Bezdin never wants Sukkot Yom Kippur to be on a Sunday. And the Gemara talks about the the reason for that. That there's reasons why um, you don't want you don't want Yom Kippur to be um, right next to Shabbos. What's the reason? The Gemara says there, Yarkaya and Messiah. The Gemara says that we don't want the vegetables to mildew and mold, and if Yom Kippur falls after Shabbos, um, so it falls on a Sunday, so um, it's gonna it could 2 days in a row could be problematic, or Messiah. The people the dead will start smelling, start decomposing, and because you can't bury them on Shabbos and on Yom Kippur. So basically, there's the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah deals with the issue of not having Yom Kippur fall on a Sunday, and therefore the same thing applies to Sukkot, that you never have Sukkot on an Erev Shabbos, because it gets pushed off when you push the Yom Kippur off. Um, so it's but so the Gemara says